Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're not just crossing continents or exploring the hidden histories of our own world. We are quite literally breaking the barriers of reality itself.
That's right. Our mission, and this is for you, the learner, is an intense, high-stakes exploration of the operative Richard Blade and his journeys into an alternate dimension.
And we're using some incredible source material for this, specifically focusing on his first brutal journey as detailed in King of Zunga.
We've got this fantastic stack of sources detailing one of the most secret and I'd say most dangerous operations in England, Project Dimension X.
So our goal for this deep dive is to get past just a simple plot summary, right? We want to analyze the actual structure of this operation.
Exactly. We need to look at how Richard Blade, this singular, completely indispensable operative, is engineered both psychologically and physically to handle an alternate dimension that is, actively trying to kill him from the moment he arrives.
And maybe even more critically, how does his unique skill set completely upend the geopolitical and military balance of an entire civilization?
Yeah.
This place called Zunga.
And the stakes, they couldn't be clearer, really, right from the very start. The whole existence of Project Dimension X, it hinges on one man.
We're talking about a human being who is classified by their own research team as the perfect agent, or at least the most nearly perfect human being they know of today.
And that's not just, hyperbole. This isn't just them talking him up. This is quantifiable science.
How so?
Well, Blade went through this rigorous battery of tests. It covered everything from his physical resilience, his martial skill, to his emotional stability.
Linguistic capacity, all of that.
All of it. Linguistic learning, mental adaptability. And when they took all of those qualities and set up 100 different indicators, Blade scored a staggering 92.7 out of a possible 100.
92.7. That number is, it's the foundation of the entire mission structure, isn't it?
Yeah.
It represents what you could almost call a human black swan event.
It absolutely is. And the sources tell us that the minimum viable score, just to survive a Dimension X transition, operate successfully, and come back alive and sane.
Sane being the operative word there.
Oh, absolutely. That minimum score is estimated at 85.
So that's a really tight margin. Blade isn't just a little bit better than the minimum requirement.
Exactly. He's not just 7% better. He represents a unique, completely irreproducible leap in human optimization. The true crisis of the project is revealed when you look at the alternatives.
What were the alternatives?
The next best candidate they found, an American Special Forces operative, he only scored a 64.3.
64? That's not even close to being viable.
Not even in the ballpark. That gap tells you just how immense the psychological and physical barrier is. And the consequences of failure are, well, they're horrifying.
They'd seen it happen before, hadn't they?
They had. They sent one other Englishman who successfully returned from a dimension. He scored a 77.17. So way better than the American, but
Not good enough.
not nearly. He now sits in a padded cell for the rest of his life. His mind is just utterly ruined by the process.
So the real insight here is how reliant even a high-tech government project becomes on a single, irreproducible asset. Blade isn't just their best resource.
He's their only resource. His unique composition, that 92.7, makes him a human contingency plan for England. If he fails, the entire project just dies.
This framing really emphasizes that every single decision Blade makes in Zunga, from choosing a weapon to engaging in this brutal political intrigue, it's not just about his personal survival.
No, it's about the survival of Project Dimension X itself, which in turn promises England access to, well, infinite technologies and scientific advantages from across the multiverse.
Okay, let's unpack this operation then. The sheer scale and the secrecy of it are just wild. Where is this whole enterprise even run from?
200 feet below the oldest, most historic symbol of English security.
The Tower of London.
The Tower of London. It's a brilliant choice when you think about it. It's already heavily secured, it's ancient, it's associated with national history, so no one would question heavy traffic or, new restrictions there.
But the sources mention a really interesting reason for the secrecy. It's because the average person, or even the average member of parliament, just wouldn't believe it. They wouldn't understand the concept of alternate dimensions.
Right, and that's the core friction, isn't it? The sources show the Prime Minister is constantly fighting off curious MPs, trying to justify the hundreds of thousands of pounds required for funding.
So the extreme security isn't really about a physical threat.
Not primarily. It's
Hmm.
more about protecting against public opinion and, frankly, ridicule. I mean, can you imagine trying to explain infinite dimensions to a committee whose biggest priority is sewage pipes?
They need absolute deniability.
To continue what they see as the ultimate strategic goal, putting a man into these alternate dimensions, they've already achieved 11 so far, with the number believed to be nearly infinite.
And the technology driving all of this is Lord Layton's computer. It's the engine of the whole operation.
Right. Lord Layton is the genius scientist, and he created a machine that's described as, quote, a monster 2 or 3 generations beyond anything else believed possible.
And it's linked directly to the agent's brain for transport.
Yes, which highlights a critical strategic insight. The technology isn't just about moving matter through space. It's a direct mind-machine interface on a completely unprecedented level. The computer is essentially using Blade's unique brain, that 92.7 brain, as the anchor point for the transition.
So you have to consider the massive strategic advantage this computer gives England. This isn't just exploration. This machine is like a black market for advanced physics, for new materials.
Giving England a 2-generation technological lead over the rest of the world, it justifies the millions spent and all the layers of secrecy,
And the team is tiny, just 4 people.
which suggests extreme internal trust. You have Lord Layton, the technical genius, the Prime Minister, who's the political shield.
Right.
Then there's Jay, the head of MI6, who acts as the liaison, and crucially, the psychological safety valve for Blade.
Jay is the human link in all this.
He is. And then, of course, there's Blade himself.
What kind of person do you even need for a job like this?
Well, Blade was recruited by MI6 right out of Oxford. He'd been their best agent for 2 decades, an expert in both the thinking and the rough and tumble ends of the business.
A natural leader. The sources note that if you set him down in a wilderness full of, quote, howling savages, his wits and muscles would let him rise to power in just a few months.
That's the 92.7 score in practice. But these exceptional qualities, they come at a horrific price. The mental cost of these repeated brain jolts from the computer is severe.
And Jay is acutely aware of this.
It's his major concern, his recurrent nightmare. He imagines seeing Blade return with that athlete's body totally intact, but with only the ruins of a mind behind those piercing blue eyes. He knows the process is slowly degrading him.
And this isn't just a theoretical damage, is it? We're explicitly told Blade already has problems with drinking and sex as a result of the repeated brain trauma.
Yes. He uses adventure to quiet his own mind, finding this strange contentment in the high-risk project, knowing he's getting nearly everything he could reasonably ask out of life.
But that contentment is constantly shadowed by this impending madness and personal degradation. It's the ultimate professional price.
Before we even see him in action, we have to talk about the price of entry, the journey itself. It starts with a preparation process that sounds less like sci-fi and more like, I don't know, a medieval execution.
It's brutal
Yes.
and messy. Blade has to strip completely naked and smear his entire body from hairline to toenails with this thick black grease.
And the source specifically mentions it smells like cheap insecticide. It's such a bizarre, low-tech detail for a project that's supposedly 2 generations ahead of its time.
The mundane and the cosmic just colliding. The grease is to prevent electrical burns, but the whole process is humiliating and intensely physical.
And then he's wired into a chair that, frankly, looks like an execution device. Fixed with 40-odd cobra-headed electrodes connecting him directly to Layton's monster computer.
It's just, it's a powerful symbol of the extreme danger, isn't it? The most advanced technology in England requires him to be slathered in cheap grease and strapped into an electric chair.
And the description of the transition itself is so visceral. When Lord Layton pulls the red master switch, smoke, great swirling yellow-brown clouds pours out and the chair just vanishes.
The sensory experience is violently abstract, sliding through liquid, falling endlessly into a great blank pit, losing all light, all sound, all sensation.
It's this forced metaphysical ordeal that he has to endure over and over again, and he always awakens in the same way, naked, usually with a splitting headache and facing instant deadly danger.
Speaking of immediate danger, Blade's arrival in this dimension, Zunga, is a masterclass in survival training. He wakes up in tall grass under this glaring yellow sun. His head is throbbing.
And he immediately hears the buzz of insects, lion-like roars, and then this tremendous bellowing of what they call tuskers, sounding like a chorus of foghorns, and they're close. He can feel the vibrations through the ground.
The first moments are critical, and they show that 92.7 score in action. he doesn't panic.
No, he scrambles up a tall tree to get a vantage point, and his first tactical concern isn't finding a weapon or even water. It's the environment itself.
The sun.
That tropical fury of the yellow sun. He's already sweating, and he realizes he's in danger of severe sunburn within just a few hours, which could be fatal in this kind of environment.
So his solution is immediate and highly localized. He snaps off the tree's pale green leaves, which are 3 feet long.
Huge leaves. And he uses the grass and these leaves to weave a hat and a sort of loincloth or apron. This tiny detail is crucial. It prevents sunburn, protects against thorns, and it shows that basic, immediate survival logistics override everything else in Dimension X.
Only then does he focus on finding a weapon. He chooses a simple staff, knowing that the really massive threats, like the Tuskers, are best avoided just by climbing a tree.
So he's navigating deeper into this jungle, battling flies, gnats, the stifling heat, wishing for 10 gallons of water, when he encounters a predator that really establishes the baseline threat level, the lumban.
This thing is terrifying. 60 feet long, a yard thick, a mottled black and brown snake.
But the lumban is driven away by a rhythmic sound, the beating of a wooden drum. This noise signals the presence of humans who are not only aware of, but capable of manipulating the dangerous wildlife.
And that brings us to the first encounter with the Zungan people.
6 tall, thin, reddish-brown men. They're hunters, looking for the ivory people, those bellowing tuskers. They spring out of the shadows.
Their leader is Dibor Nayung, and we know this because of his blue feathered spear. This introduces us to the Zungan military hierarchy, where Dibor is clearly a warrior rank.
And their weaponry gives us an important cultural clue, but also highlights a massive military vulnerability.
The spears.
Yes, they carry these spears with large, leaf-shaped blades, nearly 2 feet long, but they're made of poor quality wrought iron. The material is poor, but the craftsmanship is high. They're clearly proud of their weapons.
That combination suggests a society with a deep sense of martial honor, like you said, but very limited industrial technology. This is their Achilles heel. They value tradition and craftsmanship over metallurgy.
Which makes them incredibly vulnerable to any enemies who have better armor and steel.
And that vulnerability is about to be exposed by Blade's superior training in what becomes known as the English fighting arts.
Right, because Chamba, one of the Zungans, tries to kill Blade immediately. He's snarling insults, calling him a coward for only having a stick. This really sets the stage for the combat shock Blade is about to deliver.
He fights 6 seasoned warriors using only his greenwood staff. And this isn't just a physical contest. It's a demonstration of technique against brute force.
He's relying on precision. He's pulling his blows because he doesn't want to kill them. He exploits Chamba's really predictable spear thrusts, striking the wrist, the knee, the temple disabling without killing.
He defeats all 6 men without getting a scratch. And he deliberately avoids retreating because he intuits that retreating is against their code of honor.
The result is immediate and just. Overwhelming for them. In the duel with Nayung, Blade drops into a squat, letting this razor-sharp spear whistle inches over his head. Then he snaps the staff forward and folds Nayung double.
It immediately establishes Blade as this unprecedented warrior in their eyes. Nayung is utterly amazed. He confirms that, quote, no slave hunter of Kanda would ever spare 6 warriors of Zunga if he had them where you have us now.
So it's that combination of restraint and martial superiority that forms the foundation of Blade's status. They see him as a warrior, but also as something more principled than their enemies.
Once the fighting stops, Blade maps the political landscape very quickly. Zunga is the land of the people. Their primary enemies are Kanda, the city of priests of the Ivory Tower,
who are known for being ivory thieves and slave raiders, and then there's Rulam.
It's important to note that the Ivory Tower connects the politics directly to the resource trade. The Zungans hunt the ivory people, the Tuskers, but Kanda, the religious city, is the one making a fortune from the ivory.
And that money funds their slave raids. So this economic link is what fuels the rivalry, but Rulam is the true existential threat.
Because they send soldiers with swords and hats and coats of iron, which the Zungans just cannot fight with their poor-quality spears.
We also immediately learn the rules governing Zungan society, which are dictated by this powerful, deeply entrenched, and, as Nayung suggests, a rather stuffy class of priests known as the Ulungas.
And they have these key taboos. Fire is forbidden in the forest, and the forest itself is restricted entirely to sworn warriors blessed by the Ulungas.
This is a classic case of institutional inertia, isn't it? Their faith system is actively protecting their enemies, by forcing Zungans to adhere to these poor strategies.
The rigid structure that the Ulungas uphold is clearly inhibiting King Afuno's ability to defend his people. Their faith is becoming a severe military liability.
Nayung leads Blade to the Zungan town of Brona, and they arrive during a time of intense mourning. We quickly learn the stakes when we see the death rites.
3 columns of smoke, the death fires, for royal death. It's for Prince Macaluno, who was killed by raiders aligned with the priests.
And the visual cues here are just shocking. They establish the rules of this existential zero-sum warfare. More gruesomely, they see the bodies of enemy slave raiders and soldiers hung head down from poles, naked and thoroughly disemboweled.
Blade notes the metal armor at the feet of the poles, and he realizes these are the ironclad Rulami and Kendan soldiers. This is a war of annihilation.
We also get an insight into their military organization, which is fascinatingly rigid. They organize their warriors in groups of 6s, 36s, and 216s.
This unusual grouping is deliberate. The Ulungas forbid groups of 5 because dividing warriors by 5 would be imitating the Sky Father's work, since humans have 5 fingers and toes.
It's the perfect example of dogma crippling military effectiveness. The Ulungas are dictating troop formations based on digit count.
It means their martial structure is inherently inflexible and strategically disadvantaged against a foe like Rulam, whose organization is based purely on tactical necessity.
And this rigidity is precisely what the Ulungas leverage against Blade. Nayung tries to present Blade to King Afuno, arguing he can teach them to fight the Iron Men, but the Ulungas impose this severe political mandate.
They forbid Blade from seeing the king for 1/2 moon, which is about 2 weeks, and they mandate that he must live in Brona for 6 full moons doing women's work.
And he's specifically forbidden from raising a hand to any warrior. It's a deliberate, humiliating political stall tactic.
Nayung immediately identifies this as a move orchestrated by Chamba, the hostile warrior Blade defeated earlier, who was allied with the conservative Ulungas.
Their goal is clear. Prevent Blade, this progressive voice with new fighting arts, from gaining access to King Afuno and potentially disrupting the priest's power structure.
So Blade is facing a political siege, not a physical one. His unique knowledge is a threat to their established religious authority because it proves their ancient Sky Father-mandated system is failing.
But Blade, with Nayung's input, realizes that sacrilege against the corrupt Ulungas is a moral imperative if it serves the Zungan people.
This is where we see him make a calculated moral decision that just flies in the face of local law. He argues that if the Ulungas put the whole people of Zunga in danger to preserve their own power, then that is the greatest sacrilege of all.
He's basically committing treason for the greater good.
And the strategy is brilliant in its simplicity. A public martial sacrilege designed to gain the king's attention instantly and demonstrate undeniably the value of the English fighting arts.
King Afuno arrives at the assembly. He's magnificent, elderly, but still extremely muscular. Princess Amara, the first princess, is there, wearing only a massive golden collar and a red loincloth. She's unmistakably beautiful and poised to be a joint ruler with her future husband.
She represents the future of Zunga.
She does. And Blade executes his plan perfectly. He charges the Ulungas' guards, deliberately seeking combat. The sources detail this fight as a deliberate showcase of leverage, evasion, and precision.
He's using speed, strength, and technique to disarm, disable, and knock down multiple ironclad guards. He's trying to pull his blows, trying to avoid a massacre, but he intentionally makes the leaping and striking spectacular. He's fighting for an audience of thousands.
He demonstrates the complete inefficacy of traditional Zungan spearfighting and Rulami armor when confronted by a superior technique. He uses a forward roll to evade high strikes, comes up with his spear crossways to smash into stomachs, and deliberately targets soft spots and joints.
It's less a battle and more a lesson in military innovation being delivered in real time.
And Nayung, positioned close enough to be heard over the initial chaos, screams the explanation to King Afuno. Blade can teach Zungans to overcome iron swords and iron clothing.
It's a direct challenge to the Ulungas, framed as a desperate plea for martial innovation before the Rulami finish them off.
Afuno is stunned at first. He only speaks after Princess Amara quickly springs down and talks urgently into his ear. She is clearly a woman of immense influence, possibly the most progressive mind in the royal family.
And Afuno delivers the verdict. He ignores the Ulungas' ban and invites Blade and Nayung into the royal circle. The political tide has turned.
But this is Chamba's fatal error. He's driven by rage, watching his political allies be utterly undermined by this naked foreigner, and he shrieks blasphemy and challenges them to a duel.
And crucially, Changa then commits the literal greatest sacrilege in their law book. He throws his spear, wounding Naiyang.
Throwing a spear is forbidden by the Sky Father's law.
Blade instantly leverages this internal treachery. "The Sky Father has spoken," he shouts, using Chamba's own religious code as justification for lethal force against a proven traitor.
The fight is intense but short. It shows the brutal efficiency of Blade's full MI6 training combined with his dimension-specific ferocity. He uses the full arsenal of his English fighting arts.
Spear butt to the jaw, flying kick to the stomach.
And a final choke chop to the neck, killing Chamba. He turns a political crisis into a martial triumph, providing the king with the necessary moral justification to purge the treacherous elements.
And Afuno makes sure the lesson sticks. Chamba, along with the two warriors who ran from blade running being a sign of cowardice, is beheaded and displayed on a pole as a coward and blasphemer.
The message is simple. Martial weakness and treason will be punished ruthlessly, regardless of whether you were allied with the priesthood. The king is consolidating power by adopting a meritocratic martial ethic.
Despite Blade's martial victory and the death of Chamba, the Ulungas and their remaining political allies, they're not defeated. They're led by the Honor, the rival for Amara's hand.
Right, and they orchestrate this compromise during the War Council to maintain their institutional inertia.
They allow Blade to train 10 men for 3 moons, which is about 6 weeks, but then everything has to pause.
For 1 full year, wait for the Sky Father's judgment. It's a classic bureaucratic knife fight, designed to delay implementation until the next campaigning season passes. Or maybe until King Afuno dies, or Blade just gives up.
The Honor is gambling that Blade's influence will fade.
But Blade, Afuno, and Naiyang are too clever. They bypass the restriction by training the 10 men in the open field for everyone to watch. Any warrior who watches and practices is welcome.
Effectively turning the training restriction into a public demonstration.
Exactly. And this leads to their second key counter-strategy: industrial espionage and weapons manufacturing. The new, balanced blade spears, specifically designed to facilitate his techniques, lighter, better balanced, are secretly manufactured in the palace cellars.
And then distributed widely.
It's a remarkable feat of covert action. They use Naiyang to screen the warriors, making sure they're anti-Ulunga, and they end up with 500 warriors learning the new techniques and over 1,000 new spears circulating.
They completely outflank the spirit of the restriction without violating the letter of it. They're building a shadow army within the official structure.
This political intrigue has a major personal cost, though, especially for Princess Amara. We see her engage in active espionage to protect Blade.
Using herself to get information from the Honor, giving him beer and letting him make love to her.
Amara's dedication to Zunga's survival is absolute. She goes to extreme lengths to protect the strategy, and she learns the full extent of the betrayal. The Honor boasted that Blade won't even come back alive,
confirming he had likely warned Zunga's enemies, Kanda and Arulam, of Blade's scouting mission. The Honor is this high-value internal enemy who has to be eliminated if Zunga is going to survive.
And Blade, refusing to turn back from the scouting mission, which would look like cowardice and endanger his position, he goes north anyway. And he's promptly caught in a trap by Rulami soldiers, assisted by a man in silver robes, the High Priest of Kanda.
He is now high-value merchandise.
Blade is confined in a Kandan trading post, and there he encounters Sarnila, the High Priest's daughter. Her motives for helping Blade are fascinating and deeply personal.
She's effectively her father's mistress, due to Kandan priesthood rules. The older priests must be celibate, but keep their daughters as slaves and mistresses.
She's driven by sheer revulsion for her father and the decadent celibate class he represents.
She gives Blade a massive file to cut his chains, but she also uses him for revenge, indulging her desire for a warrior and a man, someone physically capable and unblemished by Kandan hypocrisy.
Blade, ever the calculating agent, also leverages the open contempt between the Rulami officer, the no-balls Rulami, and the High Priest. He recognizes their alliance is fragile and exploits the deep cultural divide between the two enemy states.
The tragic climax of this brief encounter is just horrifying. The High Priest discovers their connection when Blade tries to take Sarnila with him.
And the priest reacts with monstrous violence. He rips off her robe, stamps down on her hand, breaking the bone, and then leaps onto her chest with both feet, crushing her ribs and murdering her instantly in front of the Rulami soldiers.
This detail isn't just gruesome window dressing. It establishes the true depravity of the Kandan priests and utterly solidifies Blade's personal motivation against them. It turns a professional mission into a personal vendetta.
Blade is recaptured and transported to Rulam, the city of Firestone Mines, trussed up on the back of one of those ivory people beasts for 6 days.
Upon arrival, Rulam's industrial nature is immediately apparent. He undergoes this meticulous grooming process, bathed, oiled, shaved to be presented as prize bull merchandise.
The Rulami officer, Haroon, makes it clear if Queen Roxala doesn't accept him for her arena team, he's going to the Firestone Mines, where a man is lucky to live a year.
This introduces Queen Roxala, an immense figure of power in Rulam. 6 feet tall, blue-black hair, a golden gown. She's described as having immense power, being eaten up by jealousy and having a wide taste in pleasures.
And she's fiercely competitive with King Klepter, who is the one pushing for war with Zunga.
Roxala doesn't rely on political maneuvers. She relies on brutal meritocracy. Her test of blade is spectacular.
She has a 60-foot snake, a lumban, released in her private garden to see what he's made of. This isn't a test of technique. It's a test of savage endurance and willpower.
Blade is unarmed except for this massive, pointed iron post used to chain the snake. He engages in a brutal contest of raw survival.
He uses the iron post and the attached chain as a whip, a club, a makeshift spear. He fights this massive reptile for an agonizing period, sustaining injury, until he forces the post through the snake's eye and then its neck, killing it.
Roxala is thoroughly impressed by this display of pure fighting fury and immediately promotes Blade to warrior and champion of her arena team,
which protects him from Horan and the Firestone Mines. Blade now has freedom of movement within the palace and a dangerous, sexually demanding but powerful protectress.
And he quickly learns from Roxala that Klepter was the one who ordered his capture after the Honorer provided the warning. So the internal politics of Rulam Klepter's ambition versus Roxala's power is now Blade's only shield.
And Blade's position under Roxala yields vital intelligence. He learns that King Klepter is actively pushing for an all-out war with Zunga, viewing conquest as a pathway to military glory that he plans to use to overthrow Roxala.
So Klepter's hostility towards Blade, who is now Roxala's champion, is absolute.
Then news arrives that the Zungan army is marching north, and Blade realizes with this sickening certainty that this is the Honorer's fatal trap.
The Yolungas provided omens that were interpreted by the Honorer, guiding the Zungans north against Kanda. The treachery was designed to ensure Zunga's defeat,
which would, paradoxically, preserve the priest's power by showing the Zungans that new fighting arts couldn't overcome the will of the Sky Father.
The stakes become acutely personal when Amara is captured during a patrol skirmish and brought to the Rulami camp, destined for public torture by Klepter.
Klepter, fearing Roxala's new champion, first tries to assassinate Blade using a poisoned wine cup served by a slave.
But Roxala, either suspicious of Klepter's motives or just testing the depth of the treason, instructs the slave to drink first, which saves Blade.
This internal vigilance from Roxala proves critical, but it only delays Klepter's final desperate act. Parading the captured Princess Omar in the arena, chained and naked, intending to have her tortured and killed publicly.
Blade knows he has only minutes to act before Omar is lost, and he abandons all caution, all deference to Roxala. He charges the guards, killing 2 instantly, snatches the keys to Omar's chains, and throws them to her.
Klepter's plan backfires completely because of that Klepter-Roxala rivalry.
Yeah.
The resulting confusion with Roxala's arena men starting to slaughter Klepter's men under her enraged orders provides the perfect cover.
This is a pivotal moment. The deep, self-serving political friction within the enemy command structure is what ultimately allows Blade to escape.
Haran, the supercilious officer, tries to play the hero and charge Blade on his ivory people mount.
But Blade, using his superior athleticism, vaults onto the beast's head, kills Horan with a swift sword thrust to the neck, pulls Omara up, and they escape at a full gallop.
They return to the Zungan camp, where King Afuno's reaction to the Honor's proven treason is swift and absolute. He promotes both Blade and Nayung to great Debors,
their highest military rank, perhaps equivalent to a field marshal, marked by that double tuft of blue feathers.
And the Honor. He vanished from his tent in the dark hours of the next morning and was never seen again.
The internal political hurdle is cleared. Zunga is now unified behind its king and its new martial leaders.
With the Rulami army marching, the final battle is imminent. Zunga commands 18,000 men facing the combined forces of Rulam with 15,000 and Kanda with 7,000.
The numbers favor the enemy, and Afuno makes it clear. Zunga's survival hangs on this plan.
Blade's strategy is brilliant. It leverages Rulami arrogance and Kandan weakness, and it showcases why martial innovation trumps institutional inertia. The Zungan defense uses the traditional deep nine-rank formation for the main three divisions, 15,000 men.
To maintain the appearance of tradition and absorb the initial shock.
But the true innovation lies in the 3,000 shock troops, fully equipped with the new spears and training held in reserve. Blade's strategy is the beheading sword.
He correctly anticipates that the Rulami will commit their initial forces to a head-on collision against a Zungan center where their armor is strongest. The Zungans will just hold the line, immobilizing the enemy's main force in this massive, grinding conflict.
The genius of the beheading sword isn't just the flanking maneuver. It's the profound psychological insight that Rulami martial culture is built on a hierarchy so rigid that if you remove the top two people, King Klepter and the High Priest, it guarantees an instant collapse.
He leveraged their centralized weakness rather than fighting their physical strength.
Exactly. Blade leads 1,000 men in a sweeping flanking maneuver behind the Khandan army. Khanda, being less disciplined and less focused on defense than Rulam, fails to extend its flank or protect its rear.
Blade's force tears down the Khandan rear, bypasses the confused army, and smashes through the six-rank deep Rulami guard circle, protecting the leaders.
It's a terrifying spectacle of speed and brutality. Blade is at the tip of the spear, killing Rulami soldiers faster than they can reinforce their circle. He and Nayung break through to the command center.
King Klepter, despite his cowardice in plotting, actually fights bravely with a longsword, but he's overwhelmed by Blade's superior speed and spearmanship.
Blade delivers the decisive blow. A spear thrust through the thick layers of Klepter's fat and into his heart. Simultaneously, the High Priest is killed by multiple Zungan spears. The beheading sword works instantly.
The immediate catastrophic effect is evident. The fall of both enemy banners causes the Rulami-Khandan alliance to collapse instantly into panic.
The confused Khandans flee, smashing into the Rulami ranks, transmitting their chaos. The combined force dissolves into a rout, securing a swift, decisive victory with minimal Zungan losses.
Blade's tactical genius, fueled by his unique score, has saved Zunga from annihilation and proven that the Ulungas' tradition-bound system was doomed to fail.
Following the victory, Blade stands on the field, just surveying the immense devastation. He realizes he could walk across the battlefield without ever touching the ground. The bodies of Rulami and Zungan soldiers are lying that densely.
He's accomplished his mission, not just surviving, but fundamentally altering the destiny of this dimension.
The return journey to the home dimension is always sudden. He finds himself back in the London office, reflecting on the stark contrast between the two worlds.
And he immediately observes a cocktail party, a scene of, genteel, unnecessary chaos, where a guest named Freddie is demonstrating quarterstaff work and smashes a chandelier.
That crash of glass is such a profound symbolic juxtaposition. Blade has just returned from a war where the quarterstaff, the simple wooden staff he first picked up, was used to smash down armored soldiers and win the day for an entire civilization.
And now he sees this utterly privileged, wealthy man breaking delicate objects for amusement, entirely unaware of the actual life-or-death struggles happening 200 feet below their feet.
He reflects that he's a demigod in Zunga, and yet completely unknown in his own time and dimension. His legacy in Zunga is immediate and profound. He established the new fighting art, ensuring the Zungans could finally defeat the ironclad Rulami.
He oversaw the removal of the treacherous Ulungas and Onror faction, creating political stability, and he ensured Zunga's survival.
But the cost of his success is high. Princess Amara makes it clear she wishes to marry him. King Afuno himself suggests Blade could become king of Zunga, recognizing that the Zungans are a warrior people who require a martial leader.
A position Blade earned through sheer lethal merit.
And Blade, the perfect agent, the indispensable asset, returns to the gray, foggy complexity of home dimension, leaving behind the promise of a throne and a fierce princess. Our sources conclude that Blade knew he had done well, and that he would indeed be a legend in his own time.
This brings us back to the fundamental dilemma that's inherent in Project Dimension X, which Blade had to confront every step of the way, from his first political sacrilege against the Ulungas to the final thrust of his spear.
Blade is a perfect, indispensable human asset, and his interference in Zunga fundamentally altered the political and military fate of an entire world.
He risked political sacrilege, treason, lethal arena combat, and outright warfare, not for England's direct gain, but for Zunga's survival. So, What is the moral responsibility of a dimension-hopping perfect human when faced with absolute power and the desperate existential need of a foreign civilization?
When your unique skill set can instantly determine the fate of millions, does the mandate shift from mere survival and espionage to enforced uplift and rule? Blade chose to save them, but in doing so, he destroyed their religious institutions and their traditional military. He became their necessary dictator.
It's a question Blade faces every time he steps into that execution chair below the Tower of London. Is the perfect agent also required to be the perfect god?
Something for you, the learner, to mull over as you weigh the sources and implications of this incredible deep dive.